This August, thousands of union members came here to Philadelphia to say, we need a second Bill of Rights. That included a right to full employment, a living wage, and so on. I had a number of arguments with them that I'll get to eventually, but let's start with just one. Why, when some workers are much more effective than others, do union rules mean the slackers, the real goof-offs, can't be fired? Does it bother you that the slacker gets paid what you get paid?
No, because there is no slacker.
Nobody's goofing off?
No, everybody's there to do a job.
In the union, we have to reach out and bring that person up to speed. We have to bring out, every one of us is responsible for the next person. That's why they call it. But
do they all get up to speed?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All of them?
Absolutely.
They're all up to speed. Who knew? Well, John Tillman of the Illinois Policy Institute has been studying the Illinois Teachers Union and other unions. It's hard to fire a teacher. I assume they're all up to speed.
Well, they're all equal, John. This is the great irony of the unions. There's what I like to call the union ceiling.
People like that.
People don't like that if your children is in the classroom with a teacher who's below par, who can't be fired. Parents don't like that. What parents would like is to be able to identify those teachers who are exceptional and reward them with merit pay, but that's not what the unions want. What the unions want is everybody treated the same, even though we know they're different.
If there were more of a market in education, they're spending in the Chicago area $13,000 per student. The best teachers might make $300,000 a year.
The exceptional teachers who take kids coming out of poor neighborhoods in Chicago would be greatly rewarded. The problem is with the Chicago Teachers Union strike we just had is what they were fighting for is a lack of accountability, a lack of measurement. They don't want to be held accountable by parents. And the real tragedy of this, John, is that there was no parent at that negotiating table in Chicago.
Now, I have to believe that most of the teachers want to do the right thing, and they want more for themselves, but the numbers are interesting, and I don't think most of the public knows this. The average wage in America is about $40,000 a year. The Chicago teachers make how much?
$71,000 by the union's own numbers. The school district says $76,000, highest in the country.
Not including pension.
Not including pension.
Medical, which brings it up to maybe 80 or 90. That's more per hour than architects, nurses, accountants get. And they don't work that long.
No, in fact, John, the thing that's amazing about Chicago is we have the shortest school day of the entire year, the fewest minutes in front of a classroom.
We have this graph that starts with the national average, and yet they say they're overworked.
A child going to a Chicago school, K through 12, would get about 3 years less instruction than a child going to a Houston school. That's the difference. That's one of the reasons that the teachers who are so well paid actually perform so poorly compared to other school districts. Only 4 out of 10 kids don't graduate from Chicago high schools.
And teachers tell me, you're not counting all the time I do away from school. I take work home. And they do, but the government's Bureau of Labor Statistics calculated that, and they still found the average public school teacher works 36.5 hours per week. It's less than a 40-hour week.
It's a short week, and that's because the average school day in Chicago is 5 hours and 45 minutes. Do you think you can get much of a good education 5 hours and 45 minutes? In Chicago, the charter schools work longer. They take work home, too. They're graduating 76% compared to the general average in Chicago system of 56%.
And the charter school teachers, I don't see them striking.
No, they're not on strike. There's 50,000 kids that were in school,
they're
charter
paid
schools.
Less.
They're paid less, $48,000 on average for a charter school teacher. Many of the charter school teachers actually left the Chicago public school system and that higher wage to come and teach where they could actually get in front of a classroom and make a difference in kids' lives flexibly.
The teachers, apparently, under the union system, 93%, they must be very good, 93% are rated either superior or excellent.
Where do you know anywhere in the world where somebody, out of any 100 people you want to pick, where 93 of them are good to excellent? That's what I meant by the union ceiling. Everybody's the same. It's a strange distortion of this idea of all people being created equal. We know that some people are exceptional teachers, and the amazing thing is the union does not want to identify them. They want to put them in the pool with all the people who are doing a poor job and dragging the overall performance down. I think that's the real outrage.
Now, Kennedy, I'd like to bring you into this discussion. She's the Stossel Show's special correspondent. She also went to that big union rally in Philadelphia. She got a more hostile reception than I did. But
that's hard.
Well, before I get to that, Kennedy, your daughter is in public school. I should call them government schools.
Yes, that's
in
correct.
Los Angeles. So what's your reaction to what John says?
Well, I hear what he says, and as a parent, it's really scary because all you want for your child is the best possible classroom experience. That is the most important thing, and there has to be some level of accountability. I mean, as a parent, I would love if my involvement helped in rating teachers. You know, they don't want to be rated on the tests. They don't want to be rated on students' performance. What metric are you possibly going to use?
And these they that
They're
you're
magical
smearing,
powers?
These they include your parents who were teachers.
Yeah, both my parents were educators at various points in their careers. And, you know, my mom says the same thing. She knows that there are wonderful, brilliant teachers out there who change people's lives. Think about the best teacher you had growing up, and they still have an impact on you. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could trust that our kids are going to have those experiences? And when it's all about the unions, and it's all about the stranglehold, and it's all about the pensions and benefits, it makes teachers the enemy, and they shouldn't be. They should be part of the thing that makes children in this country more successful, so we blossom on a global scale.
But, John, the union says it's not just about money, that they don't think this rating system is fair, that you can get a group of kids who don't have parents who care, and those teachers may be brilliant, but struggle harder to raise their scores. They'll be unfairly judged.
This is one of the really shameful things that happened in Chicago, is the unions have been blaming some of the hardships that these kids who come into the school system face every day. The whole point...
Well, some of those kids are difficult to teach.
There's no question, but the whole point that we're making, and frankly that the mayor was making, is that what you want to do is identify those teachers who take those kids with those disadvantages and move them farther faster and reward them better than those teachers who can't deal with those kids. And yet that is the very thing the union is trying to avoid, is that kind of measurement and that kind of accountability. And you can't improve the system unless you get that.
Now, let's go back to that union rally where the unions wanted a second Bill of Rights to protect workers. And I was pleased that most of the protesters I talked to were civil. Some yelled, but we could have an argument. Kennedy had a different experience, maybe because she had the nerve to propose a second Bill of Rights, an employer's Bill of Rights.
Everyone's running around with a brand new Bill of Rights, and I felt lonely. So we crafted something to really protect small business owners.
The right to hire and fire.
Absolutely.
The right to relocate my business from anywhere to anywhere.
The right to determine wage level.
Kennedy spent more time at the rally than I. She marched along, and all was fine until she tried to get workers to sign her petition for that employer's Bill of Rights.
Working people don't make enough as it is right now.
Why don't you want to build America to be the best America can possibly be?
I think you should go away.
I think you should go away.
I'm questioning your Bill of Rights.
That's not a fire engine. That siren came from some union members whose response to Kennedy's proposal was drowning her out.
Who are you? What, are you kidding me?
So what was that about? They didn't want you heard? They didn't want their people... They just didn't like the question?
No, and a lot of the thug bosses, they didn't want union members to think for themselves. They didn't want them to express their opinions to someone from the media, and they were really upset that someone from Fox Business was there showing what was going on at the rally. And, you know...
They were until you raised the concept of an employer having some rights, too.
I am sympathetic to small business owners. My husband owns a small business. Teachers spending 36 hours a week on a job they love, they're passionate about. My husband is up until 2, 3 in the morning. And to succeed, it takes globes of steel. And that is why I'm so sympathetic to business owners in this country, in this environment, as taxes go up. And
by contrast, at the rally, many union workers acted as if they own their jobs. Civil rights laws do say employers can't fire you because of age, gender, race, disability. The unions take it further. They say the employer has no right to say no religious displays or that you have to dress professionally.
Guy doesn't like the way I dress. He cannot buy me.
Who is the determiner of my wage?
Well, your boss.
No.
No. So the boss invests in the company, and he doesn't get to determine the wage. And that's the attitude among many Americans.
Well, and by the way, the idea of collective bargaining, it's so condescending. I mean, it basically says that individuals are not able to think for themselves, that they cannot negotiate cogently for themselves, and that is such an insult.
Well, some people are not wise to this, and they want to get together and bargain, and that's freedom of association.
Then, you know what? Go to a flea market on a Saturday. That doesn't mean that you have to impose your will writ large on the rest of the country, because most people don't want to be a part of a union, and public unions, whether you like it or not, are bankrupting states like California.
And Illinois.
And Illinois, we're well on our way. $203 billion in unfunded debt. And the problem, John, with all of this, and the reason we have such a problem...
It's a race between Illinois and California.
It is a race, right to the bottom, unfortunately. And the bad news for the union members that they don't yet know is taxpayers can leave. And when the money runs out, the union members won't get it because the taxpayers have exited to other states. But the key point of all of this is that these unions are monopoly providers of services. That's why 350,000 kids were not in school. And as a monopoly provider of service, they are taking control of our government at the local and state level away from we the people. And that's the thing that we have to start focusing on and reassert control.
The monopoly part is interesting because I don't see people striking outside movie theaters or supermarkets. It's the monopoly government area.
I think it really tells us who has the power in this relationship. The mayor, who had a reputation for being a tough guy, was completely essentially rolled by the union and had to go to a court to try to get them to come back to work. And the union had all the power and all the control because they are that provider of service, a monopoly.
Monopoly provider. Unlike a supermarket, which has competition. One strikes, they might all lose their jobs.
The only way to create a mechanism of accountability in education, for example, is school choice that empowers the parents instead of empowering the school system or the union.